Okay, folks, we're back for Indie of the Week, and this week, our indie is very cyberpunky.
Oh, it is. God, I'm so obsessed at the moment.
I assume so. We didn't want to mention it. This isn't actually a weekender this week. This is an intervention, Ben.
What you can't see is that underneath this table, I have Ethernets in all sorts of places. There's like cables going in. I'm like jacked in.
Jacked in and jacking off. I can't say that. What?
It doesn't help that when I first read the running order with this indie, I misread the first word of it. I completely got it wrong and was like, oh, I can't say that.
Right. Shall we put people out of our misery?
Yes.
We are going to be looking at human interface.
Yeah.
Give us a hint.
Yeah. Oh,
yes.
So this is human interface, which used to be called Human Interface Nakamura Tower, where the name HINT comes from, the acronym. But this is a cyberpunk game by the folks at Postindustrial Games, but also by extension, Unit9 as well, who kind of help with the development of all this and the miniatures and all that kind of thing. And we'll look at the Patreon later when it comes to that. But the actual sort of core of their game is effectively a board game. It's solo cooperative, but it also has versus elements in it as well, if you wanted to go down that route. There used to be a game many years ago at this point, oh my God, it's showing our age, called Nakamura Tower. And the whole idea was that you were playing as a bunch of cyberpunks, edgerunners, who were infiltrating the tower, fighting their way to the top, getting all the data, and getting out.
Did it start as a CCG, or did it start as a board game? Because Nakamura Tower, it was a CCG as well, wasn't it?
I possibly.
I have a sneaking suspicion that may have come first and things may have developed from there.
But that has evolved over the years, and the newest offering from the guys at Post Industrial and Unit9 is Be a Better Human, which is this new set that we're looking at here. Now, the core of the gameplay is still very similar, so it still can be played solo, can be played cooperative, can also be played in a versus format. Be a Better Human, and the set that's available at the moment is both standalone, but also an expansion for Nakamura Tower. So if you wanted to dive in and play the game for the first time, this is obviously a great entry point. It's the one that's available right now anyway. And there will probably be more in the future as well, I would say. But it also works as an expansion if you already have Nakamura Tower sitting somewhere in your collection as it stands. There's a really interesting set of mechanics to HINT. It's mostly card-driven, with the use of you sort of deciding on particular actions, be it shooting or hacking and all that kind of thing, and then flipping from a deck, which then gives you bonuses to your roll effectively to see
he's hacking
on top. He is hacking shooting? Quite literally with a...
That's what you mean?
Yes, this is exactly what I mean.
Okay. I'm on board.
That's acoustic hacking, that's called.
It is, yeah. And gameplay is actually really relatively quite simple. It's a proper sort of like run and gun style game, where the action is very sort of like pop and sort of like go running through corridors, blasting things. You can do a lot of kind of actions within actions in the game. So you can move, fire your guns, fire off a quick hack, and then keep running and dive behind cover and all that kind of thing. So they've really tried to go for that sort of slightly more cinematic angle to things. The majority of the games you'll be playing, especially if you go into it from a solo or cooperative point of view, is some of you will be playing as the edgerunners, the cyberpunks effectively, and then you'll be going against an AI-driven corpo side, or they might be cyber psychos and all sorts of different things in between, military grade robots and all sorts of stuff like that. And there's a variety of different narrative scenarios for you to dive into and things like that too. One of the nice things about it as well is that they've really gone to town on the... That feels like a very early Rebecca, going back to the Cyberpunk Edgerunners. There we go. But one of the nice things about it is they've really gone to town on like pushing the cyberpunk element of this. So the way that it kind of breaks down is you have sort of like an initiative phase, so you've got to go first, followed by like a a net running phase, for want of a better word, where you'll actually do almost like a little tiny sort of mini game where you'll draw cards from a deck that will give you certain programs that you're able to use, and then you'll play them out, and using the card system, which then gives you bonuses and stuff and minuses and things like that, that'll dictate whether or not you're able to sort of like install your hardware. And this also means you'll be breaking ice and sort of like putting in things that could shut down the sensors or the cameras in a particular yes, I know. In a particular room and all sorts of things like that.
I'm such a child.
And all of this flows together to create this really interesting sort of take on Cyberpunk, not necessarily in a miniatures wargaming space, but in one that is a slightly more sort of like board gamey in that style. That doesn't mean that you can't go down the wargaming side of things. You can dive in and play this versus, so you basically you essentially pick teams like you would do if you were diving in and playing it by yourself, but you then go up against each other. So rather than having to rely on the AI to decide what particular units are going to do and sort of what they're going to be sort of breaking into in their behavior patterns, it basically just comes down to your opponent deciding how they want to screw you over, essentially.
Nice.
And the Be a Better Human set is kind of like the starting point of all that, but they have been doing this for like a while.
Yeah.
And there are lots of different squad packs and all sorts of different things that you'll be able to pick up. And the majority of the stuff that they do really kind of hits on all the kind of beats that you'd expect from Cyberpunk. So you have your kind of like standard Edrunners, Cyberpunks, you have your Corpo units, and they're split down amongst a variety of different things. So you have your kind of classically Japanese samurai styled factions. You have your sort of like Tiger Claw Chinese and all that kind of thing. You have your various types of corpo. So you've got like your Militech style thing from Cyberpunk Ret.
Heavy hazmat, please. Open the heavy hazmat, please.
I'll be there in a moment.
Okay.
I love them.
Yeah. Your law enforcement officers.
The fact they're all battening the shit out of someone.
Yeah, they've been to a rave clearly as well. They've got those little visors. They've pulled it down over their faces.
They must be German.
They must be, yeah. And their miniature design is just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, back when we initially looked at Human Interface Nakamura Tower, we were like blown away by it kind of aesthetically.
That's been a hot minute, mate.
We talked about it in a Roll Together, if you remember the magazine that we did, and we did a really good interview with the designers behind the game. I still have those PDFs on my computer somewhere.
I'd never seen an issue of
Rhino
that.
Heavy Hazmat. Is that what you said?
Yes, please.
Yeah. How cool are those?
Oh, yeah. Buying a set of those.
And what's really interesting about this is obviously, I mean, we're looking through the miniatures now, is that, yes, they can be used for Hint and their games, but their collection is the basis for a lot of people going and playing a variety of other kind of like Cyberpunk games that are out there at the moment. Like I know one was a favorite of yours, Jerry, is Codeblade.
Blades.
And that's one of the games where you can use whichever miniatures you like, effectively. And a lot of people go and pick up stuff from the folks at
Papskill and people like that, and all things. Yeah, there's tons of fun to be had
use for these. And as I say, like I mean, there's 2 or 3 pages of these. They've recently had their winter sale, which is why all of the boxes
out,
are mostly out of. But they are stupidly cheap. A lot of their stuff that they've.
It is very reasonable.
Yeah, the actual Be a Better Human set, I think, is
Ginger.
Is only $30, which is stupid.
Where are we? Be a Better Human board game. That one.
Yes,
I know this because somebody in the Codeblade Discord was going, if I buy this, I can use these for Codeblade, can't I?
There you go.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. I will point out.
You go right ahead while we look at Ginger.
You keep looking through the minis. This is the best thing. I will point out. So, obviously, as I said, there's a sort of clean set of rules that they've designed for the game that you can dive into and play. But the community of, I mean, that's just gorgeous. Oh God, imagine that landing on the roof of a building, blasting some people off the side of it. Very cool.
Also, now you have to do this at home because you're not looking at my hand. But if you put your hand over the the rest of the body and just leave yourself this bit. That looks not dissimilar to a Mantic Enforcer helmet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I will 100% be adding these.
There you go.
To my Enforcer Force. Anyway.
But anyway, yes, sorry. So the community around the game, there are a few sort of like, I'll say idiosyncrasies to the rules that have never really truly been ironed out. And so I went hunting online. And over on Board Game Geek, there's a couple of people who have put together an interesting thread, which is called "Be a Better Board Game."
Yes,
which is very funny. And they have designed a set of fan rules. So essentially, the core of what Postindustrial were trying to achieve. That's always a hazard to go down that end of something.
Yes.
What Postindustrial were trying to achieve with the game is still core to what they've been doing with the rules, but they've essentially gone through and streamlined and updated and tweaked a bunch of stuff so that things like the Netrunner phase and the general flow of combat feels like it works a little bit better. There's also, I think, been a couple of things where translation has sometimes been an issue between or the way that certain things are described for the game. And they've gone through and they've kind of revamped and changed all that. So there will be a link to those fan rules in the description down below, so you can go and check those out and see what you think of them. But as we were saying, there's no reason why you can't use all of the stuff that we're seeing here for a variety of other games like Codeblade, which I'll also put a link down below for as well. I might even put in Jerry's interview that he did at UKG last year because it was a very good one. Got me excited when I went back to the hotel room yesterday. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. You will also see, as Jerry is looking through here, that they have a Patreon. So if you are somebody who wants to dive into the 3D printing side of things, or you have a 3D printer, or you know somebody who does, they do a selection of themed sets over the course of months where they'll bring together a bunch of different miniatures from their collection, some old, some new, and they will sort of package them up in a sort of themed bundle so that you'll be able to drop them into your games. And obviously, again, you could use these for Hint, or you could use them for Codeblade and everything else in between. The stuff they've done recently is absolutely brilliant. I really liked I can't remember which month it was. I think it was January, was not January. December was their media team. That's the one there. So it's kind of like all your classic medias from Cyberpunk 2020, 2077, Red, etc. Going out and getting the scoop whilst also protecting themselves while they're in a hot corpo war zone. So
they're not getting the scoop. All they're doing is making themselves a target because, quite frankly, when my crew's doing anything, the last thing we want is a video evidence.
Yes.
That we were doing it.
Punched in the side of the face by an edge runner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Witnesses.
It's lovely. Yeah.
The thing I like about Hint, apart from the minis, is how they've managed to incorporate the edge running. Because the whole point of Cyberpunk and the thing that it does well / trickily is the integration of the idea of getting inside a machine. And when Cyberpunk came out in the 80s, when I started playing it in the early 90s, that was always the hardest part.
What? Because one player would have to sit down with the GM for about 4 hours.
Exactly.
That running scene.
Yeah. Which meant it often got ignored or glossed over. And more the focus was on people in the real world, punching people in the face, calling it a trauma team and then trying to steal their hover vehicle because it was a really nice hover vehicle, but Jesus, they're well armed. So making the integration, having that edge runner phase to actually go, you're not just playing a sci-fi skirmish game, you're specifically playing a cyberpunk game that has that aesthetic, that genre connection in there, which is great.
Yeah.
He gets shot immediately.
It's one of the things that's quite interesting. It's one of the things that has been an interesting talking point within the community for Hint is that phase, because Postindustrial clearly wanted to put it into the game for that exact reason, because that's one of the main driving forces of what Cyberpunk is about. It's about dealing with things in the cyberspace as well as in the real world, the meat world, effectively. And I think where people took a little bit of umbrage with it was that if you were doing a versus game, one player who may have taken Netrunners, but then the person didn't, basically had an entire phase to do stuff that they didn't have any interest in.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're playing a solo cooperative format, it wasn't necessarily much of an issue because you would all be working together. You could all look at the deck at the same time and make decisions at the same time alongside the Netrunner doing some particular things. And so that's where they've kind of come in and played around with the fan rules, but it's still a major part of that, which I think is a really key point to the game. So yeah, very
cracking stuff. If people are interested, Code Blade,
which won an award.
It didn't, annoyingly.
Did it not? Was it just nominated?
It was nominated and lost out to Hobgoblin.
That wasn't even available to buy.
It was. They brought a limited run because you have to be available to buy to win. And they had a small amount.
Too much then.
Yeah, I do. But so they were shortlisted for best new game. But it's different, interesting. Obviously, it's like all games are miniature agnostic. But the gig with Codeblade is the objectives change. There's constant evolving, changing objectives every turn. So you play in a very tight, constricted board with lots of heightened levels.
2x2 is it or something like that? I think.
Yeah.
Or is it?
2x2x2x3, whatever you want. But height is important because you don't know what the next objective is going to be when the turn comes in. And you can suddenly find yourself in a position where the objective might be jump off the tallest point on the board. So if you've got everybody on ground level shooting at people and your opponent has somebody up top, walk off
the top. Get up in.
Yeah, the floor is lava. So it's an incredibly dynamic game.
Yeah.
That's kind of selling it short, but it's a fascinating little constricted game, but very dense, tight cyberpunk aesthetics to it as well. So there's a lot of factions. There's a new one that they're working on at the moment as well. So you can find things like Iron Samurai in this, and they play, there's asymmetric play style in there. So being able to go into something like Hint and grab yourself somebody who's a bit Japanesey, like whatever the Black Lotus faction or whatever happens to be, and find corporate mobs or edge runners, whatever happens that takes your fancy.
Some Arasaka types,
yeah. They're all good. So Codeblade's a great thing. It's just pick up one book and it has all the rules in there, so you can play around. There you go, Iron Samurai. Play around to your heart's content in that world.
Yeah, just use the themes that they've sort of like hinted at in the minis and things and the artwork and stuff, and then go that way. So
compliance officers stay the hell away from them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to say, Cyberpunk, I think it's not a forgotten genre. It's a genre that was very big 80s post Blade Runner and kind of fell away. Modern people, I think, have a better idea of what a cyberpunk world is because, bearing in mind, when we started playing Cyberpunk, there wasn't an internet. So these concepts...
It's now at least past 2020 now.
You were trying to work out what a computer integrated world would be. We have that now, and we have VR as actual things that exist. So being able to engage people in the idea of what cyberpunk edge runners would be doing is much easier. It's a much easier proposition these days.
You probably had a fair stab at it when the original Tron came out. Like, what would the inside of a computer program look like?
100%. I was
crack. It would look like crack.
Anytime I was got Tron up.
The answer? Crack.
Tron, he fights for the users.
Yes.
Tron and Rinsler up there. But yeah, that's pretty much what I based them on. But yeah, it's definitely worth exploring. And Hint or human interface, if I drop the int. We've added and taken away an int this week.
HIBABHS.
Yes,
Hibabath.
Hibabath bunk. So it's definitely worth
word of the week.
It's an interesting game to get involved in, and and just an interesting genre to explore. I think more people should be getting involved with Cyberpunk.
Almost 2 indies in one there. Bit of Code Blade, bit of Hint at the same time. Boom. Nice.
We'll have to get. I mean, honestly, you really. If I just pick one of these things up, then you could see just how shiny they were. That's what the future is. That's what Cyberpunk's all about. I have to put it away now. It's too much for you.
You just jingled keys in front of me. I locked in like a cat.
I think we'll calm John down with some nip, and we'll be back for some more news in just a second.